welcome to the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners meeting of July 26, 2022. If all will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the agenda review.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
Move to approve the agenda.
A move by Vance.
Second.
Second by Kip. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Okay, first up on the docket, we have the homeless shelter agreements. So if Ms. Nancy Bulkman would come up from the City of Mankato. Good morning and welcome again.
Good morning, Nancy.
Today I would like to present to you the sub-recipient agreements with the Salvation Army and with the Connection Shelter for use of the American Rescue Plan monies. And so I'll just kind of go through with the Salvation Army. Their plan would be they have traditionally run a shelter, evening shelters for the winter months. And this contract then would allow them to expand that through the summer months and provide their shelter services during the day rather than in the evenings. So they'd be a day shelter during the summer months, and this is a 3-year contract. So they would be asking for $175,027 to administer the shelters for the next 3 years from April through October. And some of the things that they do provide there, in addition to a safe place to rest, they also provide case management services, connections to resources. They have showers and bathroom facilities, and also laundry facilities for their guests. They provide them a lunch, and so they would like to continue that through 2024. And likewise with the Connection Shelter, they usually operate a evening shelter in the winter months, and during the summer months there hasn't been as much of a need, so they have gone into doing street outreach and definitely doing that coordinated entry processing where we get into our homeless response system. And so they've already started working on that, and they've been really successful about getting out to the places where they're seeing the homeless. And I know there were some along the railroad tracks, and they were out there and stopping that right away, getting them connected to resources. So it's been really beneficial already to have them working on that street outreach and connection. They also provide those support services as well. And they're asking for $180,000, and their funding request has to do for staffing. So they wanted to have staffing services to hire a new person to join their team, as well as leasing space for a new office. Their current location in the church isn't a direct office space to where they connect with the clients, and sometimes they miss them by the time they're ringing that doorbell, and by the time they get downstairs the person has already left. And so this leasing space that they'll be getting is right on the main street, downtown, right across from public safety, and so it'll be really visible. It's kind of in between Holy Grounds and Salvation Army, so they can catch people moving from one place to another and try to provide those services. They're also offering up to 4 to 5 different beds for day respite as well. So we would ask that you would execute these 2 contracts for this 3-year period of time, understanding too at the same time that we are working with these agencies together to look at a combined shelter response system and a supportive housing project. So we're moving that forward, and we hope by the time this contract ends we have some sort of a joint shelter response system along with some supportive housing that can help move them right back into housing and reduce the time that they actually have to stay in a shelter. So do you have any questions?
Do we have any questions, Nancy?
So this is ARPA grants that are paying for this, or?
Yes.
Okay. So nothing's coming out of the levy
Correct.
money or anything, is strictly coming from ARPA. What happens when the ARPA grants are gone?
That's where we're hoping the next step will be that supportive housing project with a shelter response in place that they can move into, and that that supportive housing project with it being constructed, should have a projected stability for over a 30-year term. So it's kind of like those tax credit projects where we build in some of those rents will help to subsidize the building and the operations. And they'll still continue to get their ongoing support services funding from the programs that they currently have, but they'll also be eligible for other funding, like through our community or continuum of care programs, have different federal dollars that would come in to help support supportive housing and the shelter spaces as well.
I mean, that's always obviously, you don't want to be hiring people and having sit there for 2 years and all of a sudden the grant money goes away.
Right.
And you have to let people go.
Exactly.
And of course, when you have people with the issues and the special needs that they're homeless, the reason that they are homeless, and you're giving them this, and we have a very good support system, and all of a sudden in 2 years it's gone.
Right.
It may make a worse issue in a couple of years.
And our intent is to work together to make a stronger support system. We've done a lot of work regionally with our continuum of care to create that homeless response system using that coordinated entry process. And so this isn't just even working with these two agencies. These two agencies are working with the county, with the city, with Minnesota Valley Action Council, Lutheran Social Services, CADA. We are all working on trying to end homelessness and working on a response system. And the current system we have is not working well for the clients that we're serving, especially if you know that they were going from a night shelter, moving out of that the next day and into a day shelter and then rotating back, and they're spending so much time moving that they're not connecting to services. So our current response system needed more support from us and to determine how we could address the needs better. And I think that's where we've come together, looking at a combined shelter response and into supportive housing, because we also know that people who are homeless in our community because we don't have enough housing for them. So if we can add this supportive housing project and move them through that, we're getting them into housing.
Are we asking to do this separately or both of these together?
I would recommend you approve each one individually.
All right, I will move to approve the Salvation Army.
Vance has moved to approve the Salvation Army.
Second.
And Julianne the second. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just have one more comment or question, and it's kind of in regards to both of them. As you were talking earlier about the office space that they'll have entry level, front, and that's good to hear you. I think you talked about that at a work session, if I believe, because I did hear that before, and that is exciting. And just to clarify, these are 3-year contracts, right? Vance was referring to 2, but these are 3. So this is a very good use of the resources we have for a gap, and then with that plan that you talked about, would be very beneficial. And what a way to get out there and provide a better service.
And definitely that plan for that supportive housing project is taking into consideration the money you set aside in ARPA funds, the $2 million that would help make that possible.
Right.
So that will be coming back to you as well.
And I know you're going to, but I would ask that you start working right away now.
Right, we already
as
are,
to
yes.
what's going to happen in a couple of years when those finances aren't there from ARPA.
Right.
Either work with the city, the county, get joint, get private partnerships going so we can help our homeless.
Right, and we definitely have that started. We've been meeting, we're looking at a development consultant to help us finance the project and help us with architecture and those type of things. And our next phase really is doing some community engagement and talking to people with lived experience and our community members and different stakeholder groups, and including you guys, to get your feedback on the type of project that we're looking at doing and any recommendations you would give the team. So we will be coming back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Partners for housing, so part of it. So, all right, everybody. Ready, I guess all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Continue on.
Well, I can make the motion for the connection center also. If,
Yeah, well, okay.
Second.
No comment on that, then. Vance made the motion for the second amendment, and seconded by Kip, and that has to do with, yeah, the other components. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right.
It's,
Good.
it's great. I mean, obviously, our board is promoting this. Mark is with the
Partners.
Partners for Housing. Julianne is with Habitat.
Yeah.
You know, everybody around the table understands what the concerns and needs are. So thank you very much for working on this.
Yep. It's moving up, programs and to help.
Sure.
Thank you, Nancy. Have a good day.
Yep. Thanks, Nancy. Okay, I guess at this point, we have planning and zoning, and it's Scott, going to be the...
Good morning, Scott.
Scott.
Morning.
All right. I guess, I suppose, this first item on the agenda is planning and zoning, and zoning staff are here to present the action items, and this is a public hearing. So at this point, public comment will be allowed in just a moment, but I'd ask the planning and zoning staff to introduce yourself and, for the record, introduce the item before the board.
Yeah, Scott Salisbury, Blue Earth County, Planning and Zoning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is PC 18-22. The applicant is Blue Earth County. The request is a review and approval on an ordinance amendment to the Blue Earth County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 6, which is the environment section, and it's the illicit discharge detection and elimination section of the ordinance, and it's to add standards for pet waste disposal and salt storage facilities. At the Planning Commission meeting, staff presented the report. There was no public comment. The Planning Commission had a brief discussion about the ordinance amendments and talked about the involvement of the City of Mankato. We have a regional stormwater coalition to deal with stormwater issues, and the amendments are required by the most recent stormwater permit with the state, and the county typically adopts those regulations, and then they're typically also adopted by Mankato Township and South Bend Township. So the rules don't apply countywide. They just apply to the urbanized area around Mankato, which is in attachment 2. And so for us, it's just a portion of South Bend Township where the rules apply. The Planning Commission talked a little bit about these rules being more educational. There is a regulatory mechanism there, but they're educational and outreach and importance there. And one of our Planning Commission members is on the Ray Township Board and talked about at the end of the year having excess salt and wanting to know the best way to deal with that. So one of the things we're working on is kind of educational part on that is maybe having a regional collection of that at the end of the year for whether it's for townships or other organizations, but just they kind of saw the importance and common sense importance of proper salt storage to, protect water quality. So the standards are in attachment 1, and really the salt storage requirements just require that the salt to be stored either indoors or be covered and be on an impervious surface, and then also they require just basic practices about to eliminate spreading of salt on the ground surface outside of the storage facility. And then the pet waste prohibition just prevents disposal of pet waste on public property as well as storm drains. And the board action is an adoption of the ordinance amendment based on the findings as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Thanks, Scott. Well, at this time, we'll open it for public comment. PC number 18-22. This hearing is being recorded, so please state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay, and again, as if there's anyone else wishing to comment on PC number 18-22. And for the third time here, last time, anyone wishing to comment on PC 18-22? If not, we'll close the public comment period. And hearing none, I'll go bring it back to the board for discussion. Comments from the board? If not,
I don't have any comments, Mr. Chair, but I would move that we pass this ordinance on the recommendations outlined by staff.
all right. It's been moved. Second by Kevin. Any further discussion? All those then in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
That's it. All right. I guess at this point, then we have, yes,
Morning, Paul.
Paul Barta. Come up.
Morning, Paul.
Give the contract for on-call law enforcement. And you want to state your name and this for the record.
Paul Barta. Appreciate everybody taking the time to allow me to go over the proposal for law enforcement services on an emergency basement for the, specifically it came to light with us with the city of Eagle Lake. In the time since it initially came up, we've also had a conversation, and I was not aware that we didn't have this provision or agreement in place with the city of Lake Crystal either. So expanded beyond, but those are the two communities that most recently have we've had conversations with. And what the intent of the agreement or the contract would be to allow the sheriff's office to recoup some expenses if we are called upon to basically handle law enforcement services for a community within the city of, or within the county of Blue Earth County.
All right. Any
What's your
questions or-
approximate amount of hours per month you expect?
Typically, it's been very limited. We do have the agreement in place with the city of Mapleton that also encompasses then through their service agreement, Amboy. We also have it in place with Madison Lake. To give you a really great estimate is a little bit challenging because of the staffing issues that some of the law enforcement organizations in our area and abroad are seeing. I would tell you that historically we're probably doing some form of this without reimbursement in the tune of maybe, well, I don't know, 5 hours every 2 weeks or so, 5 to 6 hours every 2 weeks for one specific community, that being Eagle Lake. We see it again sporadically depending upon vacations, injuries, officers leaving the other communities, but it isn't at this point become extremely burdensome in the hours that we're providing under the contract.
Mr. Chair. And, excuse me, we're running 24 hours already, so we have someone on duty at that time, so we won't have a call out on it.
Correct. Generally.
Currently, yeah. And it looks like we're doing $40 for certain hours and then $60 an hour for after, from 0300 to 0700.
Yeah, the only caveat I think to that is there is the possibility that we could have a call out. There are times when staffing for the sheriff's office on the overnight hours could potentially drop to one deputy that's on. And if that deputy is tied up on a call for service or other obligation and we have a call in the community, we would need to potentially call somebody out. But generally, yes, there should be somebody that's on and available to respond. And, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that was the only clarification I needed.
And I would say too, the payment structure that is set up was set up back, I think, when I initially drafted the language in 2019. The rates are still consistent with that. The cities that are interested in going under agreement right now or under contract are aware of the county's current market analysis that's occurring and have been informed that after that process is complete, there is a chance that we would need to revisit that. But I guess my position at this point when having the conversations with them was to get everybody in a consistent kind of payment structure and then evaluate what we would do after we saw the results of the market analysis.
Go ahead.
And then these amounts are consistent with that then?
Correct. Correct. Yeah, with the existing contracts with Madison Lake and the city of Mapleton. St. Clair went under contract many years ago, and so they're at a reduced rate. And we will need to look at that, I think, too, just to see what we need to do. But they are less than the other two ones that are existing currently. St. Clair is.
If I recall, St. Clair is actually buying patrol hours, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Not just, this is just on call that we're talking about here. So, or when they don't have anybody there. So.
Yeah.
And there are other cities that are doing patrol hours as well, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. A couple of the other small cities. And we base that on hours per week, I think is what we did.
Yeah, it's a structured amount that
different
kind of
times.
tailored for what their preferences were.
Because I would imagine patrol hours would be much higher than this.
The contractor rate for the patrol hours, I would need to pull the contracts back up.
Because, I mean, not only are you talking wages, you're talking gas, car, insurance. You know, so you're gonna have to consider in a lot of those things, you know. I mean, $40 an hour sounds a lot, but that's maybe covering wages.
Correct. The only, I think for the board's consideration is that in the spirit of the duties of the sheriff, I don't anticipate that with or without any kind of an agreement in place, that our agency would not make some response to a call for service. And this provides.
We are responsible.
Correct. So this results
No.
in some form of reimbursement for us.
I just wanted, when you're starting to think about the pay, make sure that everything goes into that instead of just what the wages of the patrol officer are.
Correct, yeah.
All right.
Well, good. This is exciting that you're working with the small cities. I appreciate that. They're
I agree.
they're struggling with trying to get police officers, and we've had this conversation, and this is going to be much more discussion to come about this type of scenario.
Good start. All right, any other questions?
Questions?
All right. Thank you, Paul, and if you got any
I'll move to
Motion?
approve.
Vance moves.
Second.
By Kip. Okay. Well, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Appreciate it, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. Yes, we have Phil in Human Services. Moving right along. Morning, Phil.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Phil.
Morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well
Good.
for a Monday, right? That's kind of how it feels, week of Mondays. It's good to see everybody, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I have no action items.
Wow.
Wow.
That's the right response. And on those really long days, remember there was one of these mixed in. Couple of important informational discussion items, if I might. Introduce those to you and see if there's any questions or comments on these two areas of practice. One being detox, which we talked about last year, and kind of a more painful story just because we had really stabilized detox it really started back in 2016 when Yellow Line started, and that was the first year ever that our costs went down, and then the four next years were really flat. And we saw this spike last year, and there are a lot of factors that go into this. The use of the ED for medical stability is part of that, and then the ED is pretty strong about getting people out of their ED, which is understandable since that's the most expensive place to house someone. And so they send them to detox. So the jail often will look for that medical stability, and there's a pathway to detox. Officers sometimes skip all that and just go right to detox, and that certainly makes sense. And then there's this pathway that we control, which is commitment. Well, we don't control it. Somebody needs a commitment. There's really no place to hold them. The state oversees our commitment process, but there's no place to put them. And so detox is kind of it's the place the state recommends, and so we foot the bill. So those three drivers are all implicated in what's happening here. We had reined some of this in, and we were all really proud of it. It wasn't really something we tried to do. I think by working together, we just found a real efficiency, and now it's going the other way in more of a dramatic fashion. So those are the three driver areas. Those are the three pathways that we have. And just for costs, the board sometimes is interested in that. These lines include transportation. I'm sure the bar graph like this includes transportation in it. And our costs, we use Brown County Evaluation as our primary. And they do, the lion's share of all of our detox services. When they are full, we go to Woodland Centers in Wilmer or Zumbro Valley in Rochester. And rates range from right around $400 up to $580. And Brown County is the most reasonable one as well. So we appreciate that partnership. I think that's what I have. The other graph that's included.
Mr. Chair, I just
Yes.
want to, before we move from this graph, Phil. So, do we have how many people this is? Because I would imagine if we go all the way back to, even 17, but I would imagine there's some rate increases at Brown County and transportation cost
Good
increases.
point.
So,
Yeah.
I know that's a huge number, but do we have it broke down for people?
We
or
certainly
not necessarily?
do. That's how we bill it out, and it's all, billed almost like you would if you went to a clinic for any primary health care. So yes, we have all the detail, and we can certainly get you those numbers. The caveat that might go to your point is, yes, it's true, when we control costs, you're actually seeing a higher per diem year over year. That's true, and so you're actually lowering costs in effect because you're keeping them flat, so those years that we were flat. These certainly include costs. I don't think there have been exorbitant increases in any of the detox facilities. I mean, over time, if you go back 10 years, it's a pretty big
It gets
difference.
to be,
Yes.
and that's
But
kind of where I'm
incremental,
going.
go 2-3% a year, typically like our contracts. The big driver also, Commissioner, to your question, is commitment holds. If there's no bed, usually if somebody's on commitment, they need a locked facility, so either a state facility or a locked facility throughout the state or even other states. And we wait for that. So when you say how many people, some of those people stay in detox for a week or 3 weeks,
Instead of
something
just
like
the
that.
weekend.
Yes, so that's a big driver when you get one of those. We've always had those. There hasn't been a dramatic change in how many commitments we have, but they're really spendy. And when we get stuck, or when we get somebody who is stuck on a hold like that, it's very spendy. So that skews it as well. But would you like, Commissioner, I can certainly get you kind of a...
I'm just curious of the
Sure.
body or the
I'll try to
the
get you
people
a
count,
raw number
just
count. Yeah.
because it is an alarming number,
Yes,
but at the end of the day, it's not just people.
right.
So it's not all contributed to how many
Right.
people are. When you
Right.
see the double, you think we got twice as many people get thrown in
Exactly,
there.
yes.
So if
Right.
it isn't too hard to extrapolate.
No,
that from
no,
the-
I can get you a head count really easily so you know how many people we're talking about. The other detox graph just shows a breakout of some of the recoveries that we have as well, and that's always part of the story. To your point is, when you say true costs, in this case, in 2021, we had almost $150,000 of recoveries, so that also is part of this full picture that we always have to talk about, like the whole story, like Commissioner Brunder's indicating.
And I think we've talked about this in the past too, but is that just insurance that we go after, or do we go after people?
Yeah,
I mean, that
no,
can
we do.
afford to pay?
It's the fee policy that we bring to you, but there's a sliding fee, and so it depends on their
Income.
somebody that had a lot of means, went to detox, we would charge them, absolutely. And then there's also sometimes managed cares or insurance that pay as well, so that both of those.
How does, excuse me, how does that work for managed care? How do you determine then what?
Yeah, I think it's mostly up to them, Commissioner, is the truth,
Okay.
but some do cover some detox costs or some treatment costs, depending. I mean, treatment usually is part of the standard package. Detox sometimes is part of the package. So we try to recover if we can, but it's not 100%, and there's no standard from insurance to insurance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody
Now,
else?
and we talked this at the detox board, and detox is being overrun because of Rochester shutting down.
Yes, many.
There's
Yes,
one-
right.
different mental health care facilities especially across southern Minnesota, are being shut down. We've talked about that here.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, I appreciate the fact that our costs for detox are going up, but detox is a cheaper facility to put them into than, especially going up to Duluth,
Right.
where you're paying $1,500 and up
Right.
per day.
Absolutely.
So I think when you look at the graphs and saying, okay, detox is going way up, I get it. Trust me, detox, the board of directors of detox would rather have somebody else take some of these people.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't have the same training. I mean, they're there for alcohol and drug,
yeah.
and they're not there as much for the mental health issues as some of these other facilities specialize in.
Absolutely.
So again, some of our biggest things I think we have to work on is trying to get some of these mental health issues across southern Minnesota opened back up, or opening some up, because, and
Agreed.
I know I talked to our legislators and senators about this, and they understand it's a state problem.
Yes.
But I'll be more interested in seeing how the yellow line's doing for this and what's going on. But thank you.
Which is a direct hit. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Appreciate those comments. I agree with all of those. I think our bed issue, we really just don't have as many beds, and that's really pinching us. We don't have a lot of options. The other thing with Brown County, where you serve, represent our interests, when they're full, the others are more expensive, as I indicated, so that's a cost from a business perspective. And then you also raised another issue about just overall cost. The jail actually is, I mean, if we just look at this from a business perspective, the jail is the cheapest place to hold somebody. It is, by far. And that's, I think we did more of that in the past, and so that's part of this picture, and I understand that there's risk in that. Then you get to detox in the middle, and then you get to hospital level of care, which is extremely expensive. Now, the politics around that are Mayo has a mission to run too, and so I care about the fact that we don't want to spend money at a $1,500 rate when we don't have to. That doesn't make good sense. But there's also this filtering that can happen to detox. And all I would say from my clinical hat is I want to be very clear that detox is not treatment. There's no real treatment going on. They're drying people up. That's what they do. I ran a detox. I'm not against that mission. Hard mission. But that's the goal, is try to bring some stability. And I certainly agree with your comment about mental health, too, is that they're trying to stabilize somebody so they can move on to treatment. And I have mixed feelings about that. That's another intervention which we can talk about here with Yellow Line, where if we could not have them just hang out, but try to get them into care, that also is one of our primary goals. So, Mr. Chair, moving on to Yellow Line, second item to look at. The first slide are those three major goals that we've had really since the onset. We've certainly changed a lot of our pathways and learned some things the hard way as we've gone, but this hasn't moved much. We want to improve access to services, we want to increase the timely services, and then we wanted to reduce jail bed days. And we have been successful in those indicators. On the website, Julie Stever didn't put everything in here, of course, but there are updated statistics about a number of things we're kind of going to look at on a high-level view, but you can certainly dig in if you're interested on the Yellow Line website as well. A pathways document, I think most people have seen this before. There's really three pathways that we have. The street level deflection, which we've certainly tipped hard towards trying to do it as quick as possible out in the street, if that's a call for mobile, if that's a screening even on the street or at the crisis center, however we can do that as quick as possible. That's kind of our priority, and things have really tried to move upstream towards that first street level type of intervention. Pre-booking is still an option, where before they're booked into jail, like when those decisions are made about sending them to I was going to say to the hospital is what I meant, then that's an opportunity for us to also do a screening if we have staff available. We do 24/7. Sometimes it takes a little while to get them, like from the crisis center over to the jail. Always willing to do that. And then finally, somebody might be on a mandatory hold and be incarcerated, but we'll still try to look at, is there a way to get them back out from the jail and right into treatment is, again, the primary goal. So those are our three main ones. We have some others. I would also characterize this as we'll do a screening wherever, whenever, however. I mean, we want to be there and do the screening 24/7. So we'll go to people's houses. Horizon Homes has been a great partner in that regard. And during the day, we have our two staff from Human Services that are co-located over at the jail, and they certainly will do that anyways. Updates from 2021 and into this year. A couple major things have happened. We did get the approved MA covered benefit, so that was a lot of rounds at the legislature. That did finally go through. And then the new part of that this year, thanks to Senator Rosen, was that we will no longer pay our share of that cost. It's not a great rate. I always get this wrong, but I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 to $40 an hour. It's not a lot of money, but we don't have to pay our share anymore, and she got the state to cover that. So I really appreciate that. She kind of did that on her own accord. She really didn't. We've talked to her a lot about this issue, but that one she just waved the wand and did it. So we're very happy about that. And a lot of other counties in Minnesota are jumping on board now just because that thing finally has wheels underneath it and a way to bill for services. So it's a big gain. We also are a mentor site through COSAP, and people, this was all, of course, virtual. It was set up that people would come visit us, but with COVID that has come to an end for now anyway. But we did mentor a few sites throughout the nation, and that's usually just meetings with our team and their team. And again, Julie Stevenmer, our supervisor, does a great job usually leading that. Law enforcement always participates. Pat's participated. So it's been a really nice multidisciplinary picture of what we're up to. The goals and outcomes, one of the biggest ones that people always want to turn to is some of our state hospital costs. Detox was always another one that we didn't really target, but it was a good one. But this issue about how do we measure success, recidivism, that great word, to say how do we stop the revolving door, that's certainly an underlying goal for us. We measure 3, 6, and 12 months. Was there any law enforcement contact? There can be great debates about, is that a good measurement? I think it's as good as we have right now. Is that after 3 months, have you been involved in another incident? No. How about 6 months? How about 12 months? And so we are measuring that. The Office of Management and Budget is also looking at it more empirically, like studying with the PhDers, trying to look at, is there something that is going to change the face of this kind of an evidence-based practice is really what we're trying to look for there. So we've spent time with them just telling them what we're about, how we measure things at our level, and then they're going to do that more, what I would say, scientifically. And we'll see what comes from that. They've been really positive people to get to know. And that kind of bleeds into that final bullet of just community-based approaches. That's what we're about, and the evidence-based part of that. This mantra of providing the right service at the right time is a pretty good catch-all for what we're trying to do. Some more specific numbers on the next graph. The thing that's not on there is it's just about 1,200 screenings that we offer, so that's not on the slide. And then of that, less than half say yes, they can say no, it's a voluntary service. So 533 during 2001, and I will say these numbers are skewed. I mean, things were wonky during COVID for a lot of different reasons. But 533 people were screened and offered information and referral services. Again, the clinician in me says that's a therapeutic intervention. When you ask somebody about their drinking or their mental health, where have you gone, what's going on, are you on your meds? No, that is therapeutic to ask those questions. It does have an impact. We also offer follow-up care and planning and all that, and some then drop off again. So of the 533, 214 were referred and eligible for the project, meaning that they screened in for mental health or chemical health as a real issue, as an impairment to their overall functioning. And I mean, as we know, some people go out and drink too much, and it's really not an underlying problem. It doesn't mean they're addicted. It means that they made some bad choices. And then finally, 62 individuals fully engaged the plan last year. Is this the final one? Yeah. Final slide is just the percentages of those people. 57% of those, so over half of the participants that engaged, followed through on all their goals. It's a 60-day window that we try to say, what do you want to do in the next 60 days? Get your driver's license back, go talk to your employer, go to treatment, go back to treatment, whatever it might be. And then we measure that and stay in touch with them during that 60-day period on a more intense type of model. 81% of them, back to our measurements, had no law enforcement contact 6 months after, and 66 had no law enforcement contact 1 year after. The caveat here, again, this is why it's hard to measure, is we have our data and Minnesota data, I feel somewhat confident in. If they get arrested in South Dakota, we don't have that data. Mm-hmm. So it could be that we don't want to falsely say we're sure, but we have a scope that I think we're pretty confident about. And the only thing I'd leave the board with is, coming from the treatment world, our success rate just in general, usually if somebody went through treatment and if they were kind of sober, if that was their goal, a year after was around 33%. So it's not a really good percentage. And if any of these numbers do hold over time, they're not bad numbers relatively. We'd love it to be 100%, but that's an unrealistic goal, so.
Okay, thanks, Phil.
Mr. Chair.
Any questions?
I just got some questions as far as the 214 individuals and only 62 actually enter into the program. Explain to me how the drug court, family court meet into this. Are they coming through this, or are they weeded out at the top end? You understand
Sure.
my question?
Yes, I do, and I think it's a different pathway, and certainly Pat might want to comment on that too, but I think all of those would be considered successes for us, but there are some either-ors in there. You can go through
Okay.
Yellow Line,
Okay.
or you could get referred early on to drug court or family drug treatment court, and those would be great outcomes as far as we're concerned. That they need both of those, probably not. They would kind of walk over each other because
Right.
we'd have goals, they'd have goals, too many goals. I'm a big advocate for people should have 1, 2, maybe 3 goals. That's it. Sometimes they have 15 goals from corrections and 23 goals from us, and it's just overwhelming. So,
Well, I haven't been through your Yellow Line project in detail with goal setting,
yeah,
but I have been to drug court
Yeah.
with Pat's invitation more than once.
yes,
Yeah.
And it is a daunting task
you bet.
for those people and the list they
Right.
have.
Right.
That I listen to the list, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, with the resources I have available, those would be challenging lists. You're
Exactly.
talking to people that don't have a job, don't have a car, they don't have,
Right.
they have other challenges. So, I mean, it's very, very direct and very difficult to deal
Exactly.
with.
Yeah,
And then-
so I think those are all complementary parts of one continuum of care that we offer in the county. They are complementary to each other, yeah.
Then I want to back up and tie detox to this program just a tad, and Pat might have to help me out here just a little bit. So if someone gets arrested and they refuse to take the test and lose their license, or they take their license away or something, so you refuse, I'm not going to take the test, I'm just not going to do it, so they automatically go to detox. And from my understanding, there's no option for the Yellow Line system, or even if they had a reasonable person to pick them up or deal with it, they get booted to detox, if I understand that correctly. But now if they would have taken the test and been under a certain amount, then they could have been released and wouldn't have had to go to detox. And if they would have been over a certain amount, they would have had to go right to jail. Am I getting all that right?
Jail and/or detox. The mandatory hold is a .16. And if somebody refuses to test, or if it's a question of whether the jail can't determine their level of need, then they will most likely send them to detox. If they feel that they can take care of it in a house, they will. But if they don't know any level of intoxication, they just have to go off of what they see and how the person is acting. And most generally, they will put them in detox. But anything of 1.6 or higher is a mandatory hold.
And that's a state mandate.
Correct.
So we can't, so that's where I struggle just a little bit. And I'm not sure how many people are in this scenario, but if you have a reasonable person to release them to, it's going to take responsibility for that person. We should be getting them there as fast as we can, but that's a state issue. So
Right.
thank you very much.
And they typically do, and even if when they're released from detox, if there's a hold on them and they come back to the jail, then they still have that
Absolutely.
option of looking at the Yellow Line or any other services that, because they try to catch them as many times as they can.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, it seemed like if you have someone just and we'll just use the refusal,
Yep.
that they refuse because of some reason, and Yellow Line doesn't get sucked into that, because I'm understanding that it's a state law, you have to go to detox. Does the officer have any, it's just, if they refuse, they go, or if it's 1.6 or over, they go, it's mandatory?
It's the sheriff's policy. and
Gotcha.
They make the policy. The arresting officer has no.
It's a state. Because to me, that seems like that would be a piece. And again, we're probably spending a lot of time talking about something that's only a few that probably end up in a situation where, why can't that person get pulled into this and save a little detox costs?
But I think you're right on it, is that if there's certain situations that are repetitive and high volume situations like DUIs or DWIs, how do we treat that? What's our best sweet spot in that? I will say, yeah, definitely what Pat's saying, and I want to be clear, and this is what we got wrong when I said we got it wrong, is we used to have a charge list. And then we'd say, are they in or not based on their charges? We tried to hold those charges in abeyance, meaning that the cops might say, if you do X, Y, and Z, then we'll drop it. It was very messy for everyone.
Oh.
That's when, Pat was still willing to join us as a partner, and we straightened that all out. So I want to be very clear. We will screen anybody, anytime, anywhere, including detox, including the jail. So we will always screen them. What we can't do is bargain with them,
override.
to your
Yep.
point. Yeah. And so that's a separate issue. And we have put that back in law enforcement's hands and Pat's hands. We're not, trying to muck up the whole charging system. So what we see is treatment and access to care as a separate issue. If you're motivated to change something in your life, we're with you on that, and here's your person. You have to work out all these legal things that are also a natural consequence of your behavior. That is not something that social services is trying to get in the middle of, because it triangulates that and makes it real messy, and we found that out the hard way. So
Thank you, Pat, for that clarification.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I just may add one thing to this mix, and realize there's all sorts of statistics, but from a regional standpoint, from 2020 to 2021, driving while impaired filings were up over 50%.
yeah, really good. Yep.
Chair.
Okay, Vance?
Has our percentages gone up or down of the people that accept the Yellow Line project?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer, which makes me think, because we talk about this all the time and look at the sheets year over year, we have those. They're not dramatically changed, I can tell you that. So the percentages have been pretty consistent of who refuses, that kind of drop down. I think during COVID, I would feel less confident the last couple of years, like that those statistics are exactly the same, or what we're looking at. Did we get out and did we see them? Did they get charged? Did they,
Yes.
all of that.
What year did we officially start Yellow Line?
2016.
All right. So we take 19 and 20 and kind of throw it away.
Right.
And that's way it's going across the
Right.
country whenever I talk to
Right.
anybody. Well,
Right.
you don't forget about those 2 years
Yes,
because it's off the chart.
2021.
Right.
2021. Yeah.
Right. 2021.
Anyway, if you could find out and get some sort of a, an idea of the amount of people that are accepting or that want to work on their problems.
Yep.
And can, like you said, I mean, if it's 0.16, they have to go to detox no matter what.
Right.
And knowing that enough as I do about alcoholism and the amount of arrests I've made over my
Right,
career,
exactly.
1.6 pretty high.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they need to have somebody that's going to sit there and care for them over a 24-hour period
Right.
and take care of them. But I'd appreciate that kind of.
Absolutely. The one that kind of gets to, I think your point, Commissioner, is that we offer it to everyone if we can. And so that's kind of that 1,200 number. And those people that immediately refuse are the losses. That first step down is the one, because we really don't have a chance to even sit with them and talk with them. If they'll be screened, I feel like there's some value in that, because at least we can talk to them. And to be honest, a lot of folks, I mean, this is the world I came from, they have sponsors. I'm going to go talk to my sponsor, I'm going to go get back on the track. Okay, so they wouldn't show up as entering Yellow Line per se, but we screened them. And I think they got, back to a plan. And so I think that still has some value, but it's a little different. So I will try to get you that breakdown of how water falls down.
Appreciate that.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Thank
No,
you.
Anybody, nothing else for the question?
Nothing else.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the report.
Thank you, Phil.
Good to see you all.
Yep.
Take care.
All right. Next we have, I guess, administration.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is County Board Minutes for July 12th.
So moved. Been moved by Kevin.
Second.
Second by Vance. Any questions, discussion, all those in favor, then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
Next are the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
All right,
I'll move the bills.
Vance will move the bills.
Second.
Second by Kip. Yep. You don't want to stump the administrator today? Okay, I don't have any. So, okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 8 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. I do have one action item for the board's consideration today, and that is authorization to initiate recruitment for a Property and Environmental Resources Specialist 1. This is a byproduct of an existing staff person who received orders from the military for a 2-year assignment. And so we typically try and cover military leave with either in-house staffing or temps, but a 2-year time period is an extensive period. We haven't seen this very often. And so the request to the board is to grant us authorization to hire a replacement with the understanding that when that 2-year assignment is done, as we begin to learn that that individual is returning to the county for employment, we would plan accordingly and hopefully have a vacancy that would allow us to absorb this new hire. So the goal is not to increase the number of FTE that the county have long-term, but rather to cover this 2-year leave scenario.
So moved. And it's been moved by Kevin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vance. All right. Sounds good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
Then under informational items, starting at the top, we have a change of employment status for a on-call library clerk to a part-time library clerk. So we've initiated recruitment to refill that on-call position. We also had another resignation of an on-call library clerk, so we've initiated recruitment to fill that position. We had a resignation of an eligibility specialist in our Human Services Department and have initiated recruitment to refill that position. We also previously had a vacancy created in our Property and Environmental Resources Department, so we've initiated recruitment to recruit a property and land specialist. And then we had a promotion from a deputy sheriff to a lieutenant in the sheriff's department, and the follow along of that was a change of employment status from a temporary deputy sheriff to a deputy sheriff. And then the follow along to that was the promotion of a correctional officer to a deputy sheriff in that temporary role that's grant funded. So the trickle down effect of that lieutenant vacancy is played out here. Then we had an employment or hiring of a correctional officer, actually 2 of them. So we're filling some of those positions. We also filled a clerical specialist 2 position in our Community Corrections Department, as well as filling an eligibility specialist in our Human Services Department. Then we filled a probation officer 1 position in our Community Corrections Department. And then last couple items is related to a resignation of a social worker in our Disability Services area of Human Services, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill that position. Be happy to answer any questions the board might have on any of those changes.
Questions from the board, and
Busy time.
looks good as far as, all right.
All right, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 9 in your packet is a request to make some changes to our reimbursement policy and procedures. Currently, we do reimburse staff for meals while they're away on business, and so we've been operating with a meal rate of breakfast at a $10 reimbursement, lunch at $15, dinner at $20, and out-of-state travel $75 for the day. Since these rates have not been adjusted since 2012, I'm proposing that we increase those rates to breakfast being $15 maximum, lunch $20, dinner $25, and the out-of-state the $100 for the day. So asking the board support for that.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Any
I
discussion?
would, my understanding, the rate for the out-of-state has probably been long before 2012,
That's probably correct, yes.
so.
And the other point I just draw to your attention, we're making this effective September 1st, rather. We just need a little time to get payroll and forms and everything updated, so just wanted to make that clear as well.
All right, everybody understand the motion then? Okay. We had to move in a second, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I have number 10 in your packet is a memo regarding some committee appointments with Commissioner Wirsama's appointment to District 1. We talked about this at the last work session, that there would be 3 committees that would be assigned to Commissioner Wirsama.
Move to approve.
Been moved by Vance,
Second.
second by Kip. I guess all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Yep. Welcome again.
Yes.
Now you're getting more busy. All right.
Item number 11 in the packet is the June financial status report. This is the halfway point in our fiscal year, and so you'll see our total revenues are $54.6 million against expenses of $48.2 million. Some things to take note of is the state and federal line is down quite a bit in comparison to last year, but there was a large turnback last year, and so we would expect that. But when you compare it against the estimate for our budget, we're just a little bit above that 50% target. Our interest on investments obviously looks kind of ragged. Obviously, with the stock market and the impact there, we're seeing our investments in not as good a position as we'd like them to be. On the expense side of things, the contracts and fees line, we're closing on or up to the 50%. We're at 46.8% of our budget. We'll continue to see that line increase in the latter half of the summer here as road projects finish out. Personal services, we're basically right on budget there for our staffing and benefits picture, so that's maybe a little higher than we typically see, but again, our budget was maybe a little lacking because of what we had projected prior to having contracts settled for 2022. Overall, though, I'm sitting in decent position at this point in the year. In terms of the enterprise fund, the Ponderosa landfill, you see total revenue is a little over $2 million with expenses at $880,000. Again, as I reported previously, without significant investments in equipment or new cell development, we typically do see revenues exceeding expenses in the Ponderosa, and we have a year like that so far. The second page has our cash and investment balances. You'll see that our total available funds sits at $76.6 million against that 6-month operating needs of $51.7. Total county funds sit at just over $140 million. Be happy to answer any questions the board might have on any of the financial status report.
Any questions for Bob? I think it looks better than it could be.
All right, moving on to item number 12 in your packet is the second quarter donations. We'll need a motion from the board to accept these donations, but first just kind of running through the different categories. So we did receive monetary contributions, mostly for the library. Again, a lot of funding for the summer learning program, as well as a robust gift to the Mapleton branch. We also received in-kind donations, mostly again to the library, and those are listed on the second page. And then bottom of the third page, we also receive time or volunteer time provided to the library that are then monetized here in this donations report. And so be happy to answer any questions the board might have. Otherwise, as I say, we'll need a motion to accept the donations.
Move to approve.
Been moved by Vance, accept motion here. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Julianne. Okay, good. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right. I believe that ends everything that's on the agenda except for committee reports. Let's see, who should we have? Oh, Kevin, go ahead, you start. We'll go right down.
Okay, since our July 12th board report, participated in the planning of the ditch update meeting on July 12th. On the 14th was the drainage work group, our third meeting of the year. Work session on July 19th. I also attended the Green Seam event on July 21st. Also, meetings this month were Gaburba, LeSueur Watershed One Plan, and the Rural Minnesota Energy Board. Calls and conversations have been primarily Rapidan Dam, the new public workshop, and MFS facility. Upcoming this afternoon, we've got our JD 49 hearing, and then I have a True Transit Advisory Committee meeting tomorrow. That ends my report.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Julianne, you ready you have anything?
Yeah, I had no committee meetings, but went to the work session on July 19th and catching up and learning about all the projects coming up.
All right, thank you. Vance?
Just kind of going back and forth.
Yeah, I thought we'd pass it up.
Exciting. All right, after our last board meeting, I had a Blue Earth Nickel County Safe Roads or Towards Zero Death meeting on the 13th. On the 14th, we had myself and Kip and Bob and had a Blue Earth County City of Mankato intergovernmental meeting. And I had the same day I had a library board meeting and a Highway 169 Corridor Coalition executive meeting. On the 15th of July, I attended the Minnesota Social Services Association Dignitaries Legislative event. And it was pretty full event. And, a lot of things we're talking about, especially with social services issues. On the 18th, I had a Transportation Alliance Board of Directors meeting. We had our work session on the 19th. And then on the 20th, I went out to the NACO annual conference, had a meeting that afternoon. Actually, when I got there on Wednesday, had meetings all on the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, and came back yesterday. So that's kind of been my whole thing.
A little busy there?
A little bit, but that's all right.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Keeps you out of trouble?
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, so Kip?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't have a terribly busy week, but we had our, as Kevin mentioned, our planning and ditch review after the board meeting. Intergov was already mentioned. We talked about the new highway shop. Had our MVAC annual meeting, gave out all of our awards down at the Civic Center. Had a good turnout for that. The work session was very busy. Had a lot of items to discuss that day. Had several SECB, my statewide emergency communication board, meetings with my legislative committee and finance committee. Things are going really well there, and we got a retreat scheduled for the first part of September, which I'm going to try to attend, because then I can get a chance to meet some of these people that I've been talking to on the phone and haven't had a chance to meet yet. So I'm looking forward to that. And then several other items going on, again, with the composting facility, several calls and emails, and highway shop, and some ditch issues been dealing with. And a few parades here and there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thanks, Kip. And then, let's see, after the board meeting we did have on the 12th, I had All Seasons in Arena was on Friday. And it was, I guess, a kind of ongoing discussion with the members of the Powers, Joint Powers Group on financing new ventures, or not new ventures so much, but taking care of the facilities we have. That's ongoing. Then we did had several meetings with partners for housing. Actual board meeting was recent, and Jen Thieneman is actually stepping down as our director. She's moving on. I actually don't know what so far what that is. It's kind of, I think it's been in the works, but we're going through the process then with the staff to take care of things in the interim, and I don't know, this will be about my third time. At least I'm not directly involved with picking a director like I was twice before, but we're still there to help. Anyway, then we have, we had next week following, I did have the county board work session. We had that. And then had another meeting with the other partners, and that puts us up to, with our county board meeting this morning. Or, excuse me, I did have an airport meeting this morning, I should say. Airport meeting. And, things are actually looking really good there with situation of very successful program with MSU on getting students in the program, and you had a lot of retirement of pilots. So it's one of the better successful programs, and it's definitely shouldn't be a secret for the area, but it is. It's going well. Yeah, growing pains. But anyway, that ends my report.
If I could add one more thing.
We want to add one more thing.
Okay. During NACO, they did place me as vice chair for the Transportation Steering Committee and also vice chair of the Rural Action Caucus. And we elected a Commissioner James Gore from California to be second vice president.
Congratulations.
James Gore, is he related to him? No. Okay, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else.
Move to recess.
Move to recess by Kevin. Second.
Second.
Second by Kip. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. We're recessed. Thank you, everyone.